Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is going to be my Witchathon book recommendation. So, Witchathon is a month-long readathon happening August 2022, hosted by the wonderful Sam from Yarn Reader, who is one of my close friends. And how this readathon works is there are 6 covens or teams, and each team has a bingo board, and you just try to get a bingo, and you read as many books as possible, as many pages as possible, and the winning, coven leader or priestess, they get to pick a book for the losing. It's all fun and games, but for the other priestesses to read in September. So I am the priestess of the Hedge Coven. Thank you so much, Sam, for allowing me to be a coven leader. I literally, when I saw that message, I was like, you want me to help? What? And the priestesses, or team leaders, are Sam from Yarn Reader, who is doing the solo witches. Alicia from Books and Things with Alicia is doing the traditional coven. Katie from Kit Kats Can Read is doing the Crystal Coven. Kim from Whimsical Narratives is doing the Kitchen Witches. And Morgan from Morgan's Bookshelves is doing the Cosmic Coven. I will leave all of their channels linked down below, as well as the Discord for Witchathon, the Witchathon Twitter, the Google Drive to everything, and all of that will be in the description. So I figured, since I am a priestess and we need some book recs for the coven, for if you're struggling with prompts or just in general, if you're looking for book recommendations. I have this many. I do not know this number. I will pop the number in for in editing. But basically, this is the Hedge Coven bingo board. So I'm going to go through all the prompts and list. I have between 1 and 5 book recommendations per prompt, and then there's some that I don't have recommendations for because they're kind of subjective, but I'll kind of explain the prompt and how I'm interpreting it, or just what I might do. So yeah, and I will put the prompt, basically I'll put the prompt name somewhere, and then the book cover if I do not own it, because I only own about half the books I'm recommending, but I've read every single book I'm recommending. So for Paranormal, the first one I'm going to recommend is Wolfsong by T.J. Klune, adult paranormal with werewolves, which is, yeah, that's the kind of descriptions you're getting for these books, or else I'll be here literally all day. Torn by Angelina J. Steffort, young adult. It kind of takes more of the angels and demons kind of thing for paranormal, as it's kind of based on those type of things. And Her Soul to Take by Harley Rowe, adult, spicy book with demons, and yeah. And if you want any other information about these books, just feel free to Google it, Goodreads. If you want to know my thoughts on these specific books, feel free to DM me, comment below, whatever. For time travel, Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. We time travel back to the 90s. And then One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. There's a time travel element, as there's one character that is stuck somewhere and misplaced in time. Yeah, again, I'm trying not to describe these in too much detail. Books set in nature. So we have The Accidental Apprentice by Amanda Foody. Middle grade, literally, based on the cover, you can tell it's set in nature, but it literally, a good chunk of it is set in a forest. The Hunt by Frost K, YA fantasy. A good chunk of it is set in forest and overall nature. Bonecryer's Moon by Catherine Purdy, set in a forest, set in nature. I mean, just based off the cover, you can kind of tell it might have a little nature elements. I will also say a lot of these prompts books do double up. One book might work for multiple prompts, but I'm just picking one prompt for it to fit. So if there's a book that you're not sure if it fits any other prompts, again, also DM me, comment, whatever. Then we have Spicy Book. Spicy Book, I'm saying any, like, something with smut, something that features a smutty scene, book that discusses spicy scenes, and by spicy, I mean sex. I have 5 recommendations. I read way too many of these kind of books. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. Both of these are very lighthearted, kind of office settings. Then we have Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, Age Gap. Hate by Tate James, definitely on the darker side, definitely not for the lighthearted. And Neon Gods by Katie Robert is a Hades and Persephone retelling that is smutty. For Green Book, this one was actually hard for some reason, but King and the Dragonflies by Kaysen Callender, a queer middle grade. And then I Kiss Shara Wheeler by Case McQuiston, YA contemporary, also queer. For A Quest, this one was honestly kind of hard, but The Frost Eater by Carol Beth Anderson, a YA dystopian fantasy, characters go on a quest to find somebody, and The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Basically any of the Percy Jackson books would work for this. There is the Riordan along, where August's book will be Sea of Monsters, which also works. If you want to join that, I'll leave that below. Yeah. For Brown Book, this one was hard, but I went with Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. The door is clearly brown. This is like a YA fantasy novella, which is really good. And An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. It has quite a bit of brown on the cover. YA standalone fantasy with fae. Shockingly, Witchy Book was kind of hard. Shocker. Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mehuran. YA fantasy where the main character is a witch and the other main character is a witch hunter. Then The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I technically have not finished this, but from the first part that the part that I've read, it's really good, and it's witches. Then we have Priestess Fave. So this is basically, you can read any of my favorite books or any of the other Priestess's Fave books to count. So I will just go through what mine are. So, From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, a new adult fantasy romance. Absolutely love it. I might be rereading this for myself for this prompt. Iron Widow by Zion J. Zhao, and this is a YA sci-fi. Shockingly, this is a favorite. I rarely love sci-fi, but I absolutely love this. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Case McQuiston, a new adult contemporary romance. If you've seen any of my videos mentioning this, you know how much I love it. Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, a queer contemporary YA graphic novel. If you've seen any of my videos, you know how much I love this. I'm literally going to be getting a tattoo for this series at some point. And Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody, YA fantasy, literally the first ever fantasy that I read that did not take place in a like modern world setting. Love it so much. I might also read this. I have not decided. For ebook, just anything ebook, all of the books that I mentioned in this video are available in ebook format, so yeah. For fantasy, I'm recommending some like classic fantasy, like pretty popular. Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, a YA fantasy set in like Sicily. Divine Blood by Beck Michaels, YA fantasy. It's an indie published. It is one of my favorite fantasy series. I'm so excited for the next book that comes out in August. Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This is a YA fantasy, King Arthur retelling. Absolutely love it. I cannot wait for the book 2. And Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, a classic YA fantasy that I love and I'm dying to do a reread of. For book club, the Late Night Bookworming Book Club has a group book for August. We have not decided it yet as I'm filming it, but there's that. I'll leave the Twitter page down below. Or I'd say any book club pick for either August or even a previous month, as long as it was a book club pick for any book club. If you wanted to do like a late night bookworming, you could, or just any book club that you've heard of that you know that book was in there. So yeah, free space. Obviously, it's a free space. You don't need to read anything for it. Buddy read any book that you want to buddy read with somebody, or you're planning on buddy reading with somebody. If for some reason you're not a person that buddy reads, even just being like to a person, hey, I'm reading this book this month, do you want to talk about it? Or if you cannot find somebody to buddy read a book and you really want to, let me know. I'm sure we could come to a book that we both want to read. I would love to buddy read it. Poll pick, create a poll on any social media. If you do it on Twitter, be sure to tag Witchathon in it, or you can do a poll on the Witchathon Discord, or just on any sort of social media. Just pick between 2 and 4 options and have people vote on it. I know that I'll be doing a vote on my Twitter later in the month. Planets on the cover. This one, technically I think all of these are moons, but I have been told by Sam that a moon definitely counts. So the Lost Prince of Kadira by Stephanie Ann, it actually has two moons on it. Or I think they're moons. This is a YA indie published fantasy. Book 2 and the novella come out in August. I'm currently beta reading the novella, and it's really good so far. The Cerulean by Amy Ewing. Moon clearly there. YA fantasy, borderline sci-fi. It has a couple little sci-fi elements, but it's mostly fantasy. And Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Again, clearly a moon. This is a like YA paranormal. It's queer. I love it. Next we have Pretty Cover, which pretty covers are subjective. I'm just gonna list 3 books that I think have pretty covers, but again, pretty cover is subjective. Something that you find pretty, I might not find it pretty. Something I find pretty, you might be like, how do you think that? Again, subjective, just a few recommendations. Far from the Tree by Robin Benway. It's simple, but it's pretty. Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. And this is a YA fantasy. Court of Dragons by Frost K. Literally, I love this cover so much. YA fantasy with dragons. TBR Vet. TBR Vet is a book that has been on your TBR, so for example, your physical shelf, your Kindle shelf, or even your Goodreads for a while. I typically say like more than a year can count as TBR Vet, but the older on your TBR, the better. So, again, kind of subjective. Fae books. Some of these books that I've already mentioned feature Fae. Obviously, there's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, a classic like YA fantasy with Fae, as well as A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, another classic book that features Fae. Like, if you do not know this book features Fae, have you been living under a rock? And A Dance with the Fae Prince by Elise Kova. There is a Fae Prince in it, and this is I think it's technically new adult fantasy. I believe, if I remember correctly. Anticipated read. So this is just a book that you're excited to read, whether it's a new release or a book that you're just like, I really want to read. I know that I will probably be reading Shattered Souls by Beck Michaels, because I've been on the ARC team for the first 2, so I think I'm on the ARC team for the 3rd one. I'm literally going to be dropping everything the moment I can read this. And if I don't get an ARC on August 30th when it comes out, if you need me, I do not exist. I'm binging this. For a mystery book, I don't read that many mysteries, but I would recommend One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is like a mystery thriller, YA. I enjoyed it. I will probably read book 2 in this series for this prompt, if I'm going to be honest. Okay, a book that makes you think. This one, I don't really have any recommendations. It's just a book that makes you think, whether it be, it makes you think because it's, let's say it's a sci-fi and you don't understand some of the aspects, or it's a fantasy and you have to think about the world, or it's a contemporary with hard-hitting themes and it makes you think of your opinion on that topic. So this one I'm not really giving recommendations. But if somebody really does want recommendations, honestly, just Google books that make you think, or yeah, this one was really hard for me to pick, so I didn't pick anything. 300 plus pages. I think every single book I've mentioned, besides I think Every Heart a Doorway and maybe a couple others, are over 300 pages. So this is a fairly broad prompt, so I'm just going to say most of the books that I've already recommended fit for this prompt. For Smokey cover, this one was kind of difficult, but Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, kind of can be interpreted as smoke in the background. And A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. Like, that, tell me that's not just a little bit smoky of a cover. This book is again, it's like a new adult fantasy, standalone, yeah. And then we have a difficult read. Basically, a difficult read can be, again, it's up to interpretation. It can be, a difficult read could be a 500 plus page book that you might find to be difficult to read, or a book on a topic that might be difficult for you to read because of the content, or a difficult read could be a genre that you don't usually read because of it would be difficult for you to wrap your head around what's going on. Again, subjective, and I don't really have any recommendations for this. So those are my recommendations. Again, I could probably recommend a bunch of other books for these prompts. I just kind of stuck with the ones that I thought of immediately. And so yeah, again, if you need any other recommendations, or if you have recommendations yourself, please leave them below, so that either I might be able to get some recommendations and read something, or other people will. And again, check out the announcement video on Sam's channel, and check out all of the other priestesses. They are all close friends of mine, and they are all amazing. So if you are not, like, subscribed to all of them, go do it. Again, they are all amazing. And again, thank you to Sam for letting me be a priestess. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video and got some good recommendations. So yeah, bye!